you might remember me. I used to play the piano for St. Anne's Church. And of course, you're wondering why the outfit. Why Ina would wear this? You didn't know Ina. You wait, I'm going to tell you. I was born right here in Calais, Maine, in 1884. My parents were Bill and Minnie McKay, or Mackay if you're from the other side. My father worked in the mills. Candy, my sister. My father worked in the mills, like most of the men did in those days, and my mother stayed at home, took care of the family, and we lived in Milltown, right on the main drag in Milltown. And like every house in town, we had a piano in the front parlor. And entertainment in those days were you stayed home, you played games with your family, or you played the piano and you sang, and that was the entertainment for the era. My mother was very talented and picked up the piano very quickly and was very good at it, and luckily I inherited that gene. So playing the piano was one of my loves. My other love was my husband, John Creamer. We got married in our early 20s, and we bought a little house on 10 Chandler Street. Very plain little house, very tall house, two-story house. It had a little triangular window in the attic, if some of you might remember. It's gone now, but it was a nice little house to raise our family. And our family was 2 daughters and a boy. The daughters, one moved to New Hampshire and one moved to Newfoundland. So obviously we didn't see them very often, maybe once or twice a year, which is sad. If you all know, being a mother, that's kind of hard to take. But our son died at 17, and that was devastating to us. My husband, I don't think he ever really got over it, and he himself died young at 55. But now you've heard about my family, and now what I'm really here to tell you about is the Opera House in Calais. I don't know if many of you know this, but there was a big opera house in Calais, and it was the center of entertainment for the area. It was a huge building with a Mansford roof. If you know that, it comes down sharp, and great big Belvedere windows, which are real tall windows with a fan over the top. Magnificent building, and it was so big you could see it from anywhere in town. And it was a source of entertainment for everybody in Calais, and there were many, many shows there. There were, the Boston sent their opera people there. There were vaudeville acts, there was minstrel shows, there were individuals singing and playing, and skits and plays and things like that. So it was a source that everybody would go to. I'll tell you a little bit about the inside. The inside had a beautiful, big, wide open staircase, and in the staircase was a big painting of Linus the horse, and maybe some of you have seen copies of it, but it was the horse that had a 14-foot tail and a long mane. I'm sure some of you have seen a picture of it. Lots of people would go to the Opera House just to see the painting. The draperies were magnificent, and they were hand-painted, a picture of Dochet Island. Beautiful, and just a magnificent building. I can't describe it to you deeply enough to tell you how much I love that building. The shows would start, especially like the vaudevillian shows and the minstrel shows. There'd be a drum major in a big red outfit, and he would come down Calais Avenue, and they'd be drumming and introduce to the town that there was going to be a show that night. And they'd stand out in front of the Opera House and beat on the drums, and that would tell everybody that the show was going to begin. That's where the phrase drumming up business came. Bet you didn't know that. Learn something every day. So when you would get to the show, you'd go inside, and of course it would be a big social event. So you'd be standing around and talking to your neighbors or your friends, and all of a sudden the usher would come out and he'd ring a little dinner bell, and everybody very quietly would go into their seats to watch the show. Now I'm telling you, when you think of Calais, Maine, you don't think of the greats, but Enrico Caruso sang here, the great tenor. He came by steamership, and he played at our very own Opera House. We had a prize fight. You guys would be interested in this. There was a prize fight here. John L. Sullivan came here, and he fought against Paddy Ryan. And John L. Sullivan wanted everybody to come to the fight, of course, because I'm sure that's how he made money. And he drove around all day long in his Surrey so people could see him, so that they would say, well, who is this guy? You know, and they'd want to come to the fight. So it was a grand time. So now we're getting to me. Along came silent movies. Well, silent movies really weren't that silent, if you really want to know. The projector made a lot of noise, and it creaked and made noise. So then what they needed was a piano player. Right here. You needed somebody that could be quick and change beats quickly because the movies changed so fast. Well, not really that fast. They were silent movies, remember? And when the movies were sent to you, they were also sent sheet music, and it would tell you when you were supposed to speed up or when you were supposed to slow down. And the sheet music was classical music. Many people don't realize that, but it was from the old masters. And you could just picture a horse running across the screen, and you could hear the music. Dun, 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 dun. That's a classical song. Or if something was bad, it goes dun, 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 dun. Classical again. So they needed someone like me to play the piano, and I loved it, and I did it as much as I could. I also played for individuals who came there to entertain individual singers. I used to play for all of the churches. I used to play for the St. Patty's Day thing at the Catholic Church. I loved playing the piano. And then I got to play at St. Anne's Church, which I was telling you about before I died. And there, before the church would start, you know how you always play, you go into the church and you hear music playing. I'd play the classical songs again because I knew them. So a lot of people were introduced to the classics right there in church and didn't even realize it. Sadly, though, I died in 1971, which some of you probably were still alive in 1971. But I had a great life. I loved the Opera House. I loved my family. And I thank you all for coming and listening to my story.